I have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
All right, Mustache Declan is back from his honeymoon in Maui. I love how, except for me and Judd, who just grind out these cold winter months, half of Flagrant Howls, Kyle, Declan, they just go to Maui, Yeah. I'm just going to go to Maui for,
nice.
You guys spend half the month in Maui. But
yeah, not bad.
He's back.
A lot of texting with Kyle because he got married at the same resort that I stayed at.
Yeah.
So there was
a
lot
a
of
plaque
texting.
that
Kyle
commemorates
Kyle
the
of Flagrant
Tiggy?
Howls. Got married here.
Yeah,
So
Kyle Tiggy from Flagrant Howls and Dane Moore's NBA podcast stood right here with his lovely wife.
Yeah, it was a great time. Every time you go there, you always you meet the locals who have also or not even the real locals, but the people that live there that used to live in the States here on the mainland. And it is very tempting to be like, you know what? What would it take to pack up all my stuff and just live there for the rest of my life?
Dude, we had very, very similar non-realistic conversations about that. We went to Maui for a wedding for 6 days 8 years ago. And man, you're just sitting there I could probably just run an acai bowl shack and live on no money and just live on vibes and ocean waves, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. Getting Judd to go to Hawaii seems like an impossible task.
It's too far, and there's no way. There's no way. It looks like if it wasn't so far, I would love to go there, but I ain't gonna move there. There'd be no way. It's too much.
Well, once you get there, you probably maybe just want to stay there because then it's super far coming back. And
no, that's probably true. But I mean, they don't have teams there, so I got to watch games. They start at weird times there, which is probably great for a while. But then I would think, Sunday night games start at what, 2:00 there?
3:30.
We were 4 hour difference.
That's too much.
We were in a hot tub on Thursday night, and not even Thursday night because it was 3:00, and one guy said, "Oh, I gotta get up and watch the game." And I looked at Kelsey and I said, "What game is he possibly talking about?" And I realized, oh my God, Thursday night football had just started back home.
Yeah, the slide-ins were going on, and you were missing them.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So we'll get to our state of the Wolves here and the different categories. But another reason why Judd doesn't want to go to Hawaii, he'd be too far away from that Parlor Burger.
Parlor bar, you fantastic. And in fact, if you are going to be attending a Wolves game, perhaps Thursday night, it's a late start. It's the Knicks. It's Cat coming back to town, and you're like, you know what? Let's go to the game and let's make a night of it. Let's get a delicious burger first. I'm going to tell you right now, Parlor Bar in the North Loop, not far at all from the arena, is the place to stop. The burger is fantastic. Can I interest you in the craft cocktail menu as well? I'm going to give you a tip too. If you're not a burger person, Parlor's still perfect. The fried chicken sandwich. I've had it. Underrated. Like the burger's the burger, right? But let's talk about the depth chart. The fried chicken sandwich is absolutely...
It's Josh Minott coming off the bench.
The Rob Dillingham.
It's sixth man of the year for sure. So anyway, Parlor Bar Kitchen open until midnight as well on Fridays and Saturdays, located in the North Loop. Check it out. Before or after a Timberwolves game, you'll be glad you did.
All right, Dex is going to guide us through the structure of State of the Wolves here. So hit us with the overview, and we'll go from there.
All right, overview. So the Wolves are 14-11. They have won 6 of their last 7 games since the last time I've joined you guys. They're 7th in the Western Conference right now. There's a bunch of teams just jumbled. They're technically tied for that 5th seed, but if the playoffs start today, which we'll get to here in a sec, they are 7th right now in the Western Conference due to tiebreakers. They're 19th in offensive rating. They're 4th in defensive rating. That rating has really shot up the last few weeks. They were kind of a fringe top 10, 9th, 10th, and now they've been arguably one of the best defensive rating teams in the NBA the last few weeks. Playoff odds, they're at a 52.9% chance to make the playoffs per ESPN, but on Basketball Reference, who nearly dug their grave 2 weeks ago, they're now up to 84% on
Frauds.
Basketball Reference.
I can't take them seriously anymore.
These are both frauds.
20. I think it was 20 2 weeks ago. So in the span of winning 6 of 7, all of a sudden now you're a near lock to be a playoff team.
All these people panicking and Basketball Reference panicked. Just take a deep breath, everyone. It's December.
Or just keep the odds down a bit more right now? Like, why are they fluctuating that much?
Yeah, we need to speak to someone in the algorithm department.
Yes.
In the
Of
sausage making
Basketball
department.
Reference.
I'm beginning to
Please let us
question the
know.
whole thing, though.
0.2% chance to win the LOB according to ESPN, and a 1% chance per Basketball Reference. And with the Wolves being that 7th seed at the playoffs started today, they'd play the Warriors in a play-in situation, which would be very, very fun. Sign me up. I think that's fun. And they'd host, by the way. They would obviously host Golden State because they'd be the top play-in team. So that's your overview, your state of the Wolves. We'll start with a vibe check. Judley, do you have a vibe check for the Timberwolves here with them turning things around a bit?
Yeah, vibes are stable. Vibes are very stable, which, by the way, 2 weeks ago, you could not say. There was some weird stuff. There was some behind-the-scenes friction. It didn't feel right. But to your point now, 6 of 7 wins. A really interesting game that I talked about in the parlor spot against the Knicks on Thursday night against Cat. Golden State then on Saturday here. But, Phil, I feel like that things are stable. Like there are certainly some improvements to be made. This is not the finished product yet. There I think is still some familiarizing with the new guys going on. But boy, it sure feels a lot more like we expected it to than it did a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I'll say the vibes are back to primetime, literally and figuratively, because primetime figuratively, Declan laid out 6 wins in 7 games. They're up to now 8th in the point differential rankings across the whole league. So they have the 8th best point differential in the entire NBA. They actually passed Golden State. Golden State lost last night to the Mavericks at home in a shootout. And then literally back to prime time because you have the Knicks coming to town on Thursday night. These are, in fact, I would argue these are back to back. Like you're going to have a hard time finding a more fun, spotlighted back to back. There's probably a few later in the season, but you get the Knicks and Karl Anthony Towns returning to Target Center on TNT inside the NBA. I don't think they're going to be perched up at the arena like they were in the playoffs, but
No Draymond.
Yeah, no Draymond just lurking in that middle seat.
I hate
Why am I here? But you will get Draymond lurking then 2 nights later when you host Golden State at home. So this is, if you looked up and down the entire Target Center schedule, it's hard to find a more fun back-to-back. They do get a day off between than Cat's return on Thursday and then this Warriors team. The only thing missing from this rivalry is like a playoff series. The last 2 or 3 years, you've had physical fights on the court. You've had mocking through podcasts and media. It gets chippy between Draymond and Gobert and Jaden and Draymond and
Ant
even
and
like
Steph now are a thing.
Jaden and Steph.
No, Ant and Steph are
Ant
friends, but like there's a great competition now.
Yes.
That's fun. Ant screaming in Steph's face after Steph trash talked him in that first game of the back-to-back at Golden State was awesome.
Yeah. So we're going to get, and by the way, we talked about this last week too. They had between the Golden State loss on Sunday where they gave up like 44 points in the third quarter and they just kind of train wrecked that game away in the second half. Then they had 5 days off with like 3 practices. And boom, defense back to lockdown. Offense is still a little clunky, and we can talk about some of that stuff. But kind of the same thing here where you play on a Sunday against San Antonio. Your next game isn't until Thursday, so they're going to get time to come back home, get a couple practices in for a team that did not get training camp fully together. This trade kind of nuked all of those things. The back-to-back weeks of extra practices, I think that's important. So, Dex, vibe check.
Vibes are good. I'm going to keep this very simple. Vibes are good. So you've won 6 of your last 7 games here. You've dug yourself out of the hole. They were multiple games under 500, and the vibes were bad. The vibes were trending in a bad direction, and they were weird. Maybe not bad, might be too strong, but the vibes weren't in a good place. Now you've won 6 of 7. You've gotten a little bit more out of Jaden McDaniels, which I'm sure we might talk about too. Like, it just seems in general that the Wolves withstood a little bit of a rocky start, which, by the way, happens a lot in the NBA. The first 20 games are that benchmark. I know we got a little bit teased for that. Oh, now are you going to start believing? But here they are. Vibes are good. Things are trending in the right direction. I'm glad the Wolves have dug themselves out of this hole.
Yeah. Okay, let me go first with favorite current Wolves thing, because I think I probably speak for everyone when I say the defense. The defense coming around. So they are right now up to 4th in defensive net rating, as pointed out in the overview, but number 1 by a mile since Ant called his team out after that Sacramento game. Or maybe it was the game, but it was around that time.
Sorry, Cam. No.
So they lost that Sacramento
6 or 7
game.
since then
Yep.
that they've won. You're right.
So they have locked in defensively. And if you look at game by game, it is straight out of the early 2000s, these point totals they're giving up. Like, it's hard to hold a team under 100 in today's NBA. Because teams are averaging, just look at the entire league. The worst offensive team in the league is still averaging, I think it's the Sixers. It's either the Sixers or the Pelicans. The worst teams in the league are averaging 105 points a game. The best teams in the league are averaging, like the Cavaliers, are $121 per game. Celtics 120 per game. Grizzlies 122 per game. So holding a team under 100 is a huge accomplishment, just like in a random game. Here are the Timberwolves' last 7 games defensively. 92 allowed, 80, 80, 90, and then 114 against Golden State because of the 44 they allowed in the third quarter. 87, 92 against a rock-solid competitive San Antonio team with one of the best young players in the world. So, like, the gap between the Wolves' defensive net rating and the second-best defensive team since Ant called out his team is a half a country wide. And if this is going to be their new, like, if Julius is kind of buying in to the degree to which he can, and lockdown Jaden McDaniels is sort of back, and this bench unit, which we can talk more about too, which even when they're not playing well offensively, that bench unit just swarms opposing teams. Also, the Wolves are tied defensively for second in the league in three-point defense. And maybe even more interestingly, they're allowing only the 4th fewest three-point attempts. So teams aren't even like getting three-pointers off against the Wolves like they do against other teams. And they are the 4th best turnover forcing defense in the league. So we've come a long way from the first 3 weeks of the season. Oh my God, this team can't stop anybody. Portland is running up ridiculous scores on this team. And there's been some schedule stuff in here. You catch the Lakers without LeBron, mysteriously absent. But to hold even an NBA team of backups to 92 points or 80 points is pretty ridiculous. So the defense, definitely my favorite current Wolves thing.
Well, yeah, and it's huge too. And I'm sure part of it is what we talked about with the gelling process. But part of it too is just basically a question: how hard are you willing to work, right? Because defense is probably, I think if it's working, it's fun, but I mean, it's effort. It's not sexy, and you don't win style points, which is what I think a ton of guys like. But what you get is this, which is just your identity. This is them.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a nice run where it's sort of fluky. If this team is going to be successful, what they're doing right now is them. And the offense will come, and that's fine. But the reality is they're giving themselves a real chance to win games they didn't have a chance to win before because of a commitment to something that takes a lot of work to do.
And it kind of feels like too, some of the, if you can just get 85% of this level defense the rest of the year, if you can
Sure.
just finish as a top 5 defensive net rating team, awesome. That's your identity. And offensively, they definitely have lulls or certain lineup combinations that just they're not going to score a bunch of points. But it also kind of feels like some of the lack of offense, like last night, for instance, Rudy Gobert literally missed 2 layups and an alley-oop dunk in the fourth quarter alone.
Yeah.
They're still missing a lot of wide open threes, like catch and shoots. So some of the offensive stuff feels like, boy, if you could just make 2 more layups and a corner 3, all of a sudden you're scoring 7 more points than you otherwise would have. And we're not talking about dismantling a scheme or overhauling anything crazy.
Right.
So, yeah, defense. The Vinster.
The Vinster's I'm
He's
glad you're
shaking
back.
off.
I'm
He's
glad
like,
he
"Good luck.
had to be pissed
Get by me.
off. You
Get by me."
You disappear for a week. They're not happy. And I don't
No.
care where they go. Grandma and grandpa might be great. That ain't home.
No. No, he is a mama's boy 99% of the time, but I will say these last few days he has been loving up on dad, which I
Do you think
loving.
like when you leave your dog, like do you think they think you're never coming back and they're
Yes.
just super pleasantly surprised when you
Yes.
do?
I think
No,
that's like a scientific thing, isn't it? I
Stella's
think that's
mad.
a thing. Yeah.
Stella
like they
will not
know.
talk to us when we get back
Oh.
for like
Vinny,
a day until
Vinny
she
will get
forgets.
over it. Vinny will mostly
Okay.
get over it pretty quick, but luckily, yes, he has been loving up on his father, my son.
Stella just pouting.
Yeah.
Stella gets really pissed off.
You bastard.
And then she won't talk to Dawn for a while. It's great stuff. It's great
Yeah,
stuff.
but then she realizes, oh, I need these people to like
Yeah.
keep me alive and
Oh.
give me food and stuff.
Yeah, she's like, just feed me. Just shut up and feed me. Which is basically my life every day with this dog. My favorite thing in diehard fashion is this. Welcome to the party, pal. Jaden McDaniels.
Get me my detonators.
Jaden McDaniels, who against the Spurs on Sunday posted the first double-double of his career, 12 points, 11 boards, which is, I guess, a career high. Surprised me a little bit.
That's wild.
4 steals and assists. Against the Lakers on Friday, 18 points, 9 boards, 5 steals. So last 2 games, 9 steals total. Jaden McDaniels, well, you know what? Welcome back. This is what, like, if you can just get a semblance of this most of the time, right? Like, you don't have to have phenomenal games. You do have to play really good defense because that is your calling card, and we just talked about that fact. But Jaden McDaniels, I was getting concerned. It's great to see him back at the party.
Yeah, I actually, spoiler alert, I actually had Jaden McDaniels' first career double-double as my least favorite Timberwolves thing.
So you got to go negative
more
on
just out of like, dude, how?
I know.
How is that possible?
I know. Well, and for all he plays and has played defensive games that have been great, I would have thought 11 boards, like, I would have thought that he had 11 or 12 in a couple of games before, where he goes and gets aggressive. But
Well,
anyway.
he's sick. Yeah, and his primary job is like oftentimes he needs to get back in transition or what have you.
Sure.
But yeah, it's kind of crazy that he hasn't even just stumbled into like
Right.
Andrew Wiggins discovered rebounding in the playoffs a couple of years. Remember when Andrew Wiggins all of a sudden was grabbing 12 rebounds in a playoff game?
Yeah.
And somebody asked him after one of the Western Conference finals or something or finals. And he's like, yeah, I just kind of like realized that I can go get rebounds. Like it's something
possible.
I can do. It's like, wow, dude, yes.
It's possible to get them boards. But yes, it's good to see him participating now and not being sort of surly and cantankerous and upset. And it's up to the Wolves, and it has been, I understand this, to involve him at times. So like there are times where he gets lost. But it feels like for as deep as he is now into his career, that sort of becomes the default excuse. Well, the Wolves aren't calling plays for him. What is he supposed to do?
Yeah.
He's supposed to contribute.
Well, he's, so we don't really do New Year's resolutions in the Mackey house, but we will pick like a word of the year that we want to, all right, I'm going to focus on this thing. Like it could be fitness or it could be something, right?
Yes.
Like we need like 2 or 3 words of the year for Jaden McDaniels to say these aren't New Year's resolutions, but just basketball is kind of complicated and there's a million things. You could have a million tabs open, right? But dude, lockdown defense, rebounding, energy, and cleanup on offense.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe like corner threes. But now that's a lot of tabs. But
third
rebound, I
one
feel
I
like
like a lot.
rebounding should be in that discussion because like they don't have 7-foot cat out there to average 10 or 11. And, Julius will grab some rebounds, but who's helping to fill that void? It has to be some of the smaller players. And he's not even small. Like he's slight, but he's still 6'9" and one of the most athletic dudes out there. I'm not saying 11 rebounds every night, but to see 9 rebounds and 11 rebounds in back-to-back games, that is a revelation for Jaden McDaniels.
Yes. And that is why it is my favorite thing. That's why I come here being very positive about this. Positive.
I'm glad you cut me off at the pass.
You were trying to be negative about a guy playing well now.
Yeah.
Grinch.
My favorite Wolves thing, even though it's been Minor minutes. My favorite thing is still what Rob Dillingham's energy and that he brings to this team. So I know he hasn't played a ton still, and there could be a conversation in the least category of how can you get this guy more minutes? He needs more minutes. And look, defensively, he's still probably a little bit of a problem. Just even the last 3 games, like he's a negative 22 when he's on the court. Like I get that this team preaches its defense. The defense has held teams the last few weeks, and that's great. But when you watch him, like you watch what he was able to do even yesterday in at the end of that game, that energy that he provides, and I want it to be more. I want 15 to 20 minutes and not, sub 10 minutes a game. But the energy he brings is different. And you didn't trade up and you didn't go after to get this guy to just be a fringe type of roster player. I think there's more to this dude, obviously. He was a great player in college, and I want to see him more. I want to see what more he can bring. So just his energy right now, I think, is great. And then how can you harness that and then, explode it into more minutes and more energy for Rob Dillingham and the rest of the Wolves?
Yeah, there's definitely some little flashes there, and his handles, even like in garbage time last night, it was like the game was over. It was like a 20-point game, and one of the Spurs defenders picked him up like 3/4 court and was harassing him, and he put that dude, he's like, all right, you want to do this in garbage time? And it was like, do between the legs, gets across the half court line, and the bench is just like, oh, he's cooking these Spurs backups. Before we get to our least favorite Wolves things here, a shout out to Brixworth, couple blocks away from Target Center, and we had couple listeners actually over the weekend sent us a picture of the Cool Ranch Dorito dry rub wings that they were enjoying, and the Naz Reid hazy IPAs at the Brixworth in the North Loop. Just an awesome place to gather with your friends, your family, before Wolves games, after Wolves games, or even for away games where you can just belly up and watch games on TV. Right in the North Loop, super close to Target Center. Also cheaper parking options over there too. Just get on foot and walk a couple blocks down the street, right by the light rail too. So yeah, Brixworth, we appreciate them jumping on board here for the upcoming Timberwolves season. And hey, speaking of, we got a new partner here on Flagrant Howls. Dex, tell them about it.
Yeah, that's right. I met my friend Heather last week, and Heather is a diehard Wolves fan. Okay, she's a season ticket holder. Speaking of Rob Dillingham, loves some Rob Dillingham, wants more minutes from Rob Dillingham. And she is, as you see on the YouTube screen, your real estate MVP. WolvesRealtor.com. We love all of our sponsors and what they're able to bring, but Wolves Realtor, Heather, I think, really nailed this one. So if you are looking to sell your home, you're looking to buy a home, which is obviously a very complicated and can be an intimidating process, Heather's going to help you walk you through that by going to WolvesRealtor.com. And in fact, if you go to WolvesRealtor.com right now, you can enter to win 2 free lower-level tickets to the upcoming Wolves-Clippers game on January 6th. Nice. So at the very least, you can register to win some Wolves tickets. And if you see her around, she's a season ticket holder, go say hi to Heather. She loves talking Wolves. That's WolvesRealtor.com if you are interested in buying or selling your first home.
Love it, man. I love that website, WolvesRealtor.com. Just stake that claim.
Welcome aboard. It's awesome.
So, okay, least favorite Wolves thing. Judd, why don't you start?
So it remains the up and down nature, shooting-wise, down too much of our guy, Donte DiVincenzo.
Your guy. Oh, you've been stumping for him.
1 for 4 from the field, 1 for 3 on threes, 3 points in 20 minutes of action against the Lakers. Last night, 3 of 7 from the field, 1 of 5 on threes, 7 points in 20 again. Now, I guess the good news is that against the Lakers, he was a -10. The good news is that then last night against the Spurs, he was a +15. So that definitely changed. But, boy, this has just been an adjustment here. It's been an adjustment. We've talked about the fact that he traditionally starts slow. It appeared that he might be getting going earlier in this streak when they've won 6 of 7. So you thought that might be the switch being flipped. Clearly, that's not necessarily the case. I still have high hopes. I still love the fact the contract is a contract that it very much fits in nicely for cap purposes. But it just seems that we can't get started here. From a shooting standpoint, from a 3 standpoint, all of these things are traditionally his strengths. And right now, they're not. So that's that for now is my least favorite thing. But in the holiday season and cheer, I'm still going to maintain hope. Unlike Grinch Phil that this is all fine. DiVincenzo's still my guy.
Fine too. No,
you just said he's my guy, not your guy. You just disavowed him. You
Facetious.
disavowed him. You tried to make Jaden, poor Jaden, one of your least favorite things. I bring hope to the show today.
Here's what's crazy. So because I know there's a lot of Wolves fans that probably weren't watching him play with the Knicks much last year, and like your first experience with DiVincenzo is this bricklaying dude shooting 35%. How is this possible? I'm telling you, man, last year when he was getting like starting rotation run with the New York Knicks, and he's playing 35, 40 minutes, he's out there. He had games of 31, 32, 36. Like he was scoring 20, 30 points on a regular basis down the stretch last year. Mm-hmm. He had a game, it was against the Pistons, but he had a game in which he went 11 for 20 from three-point range. He took 20 threes in a game, knocked down more than half of them, scored 40 points. Against the Pacers right before the new year last year, 38 points, knocks down 7 of 11 from three. Against Utah, 9 of 15. Like he has these games with the Knicks last year where he's just taking over as a three-point shooter. And we're not seeing that yet with the Wolves. But the crazy thing is, like last night, another great example. The Wolves bench, like the three main dudes off the Wolves bench, Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Donte DiVincenzo, they combined to go 10 for 32 and shot 3 for 17 from three-point range. And if I stopped there, I said, well, what do you think about the Wolves' chances to win that game on the road against San Antonio when their bench is shooting 20-something% from the field or 30% from the field and 3 of 17 from three? So, well, they're probably screwed, right? Yet those three players were a plus 26, a plus 15, and a plus 28 on the court. They ran the Spurs' second unit, and in some cases the starters, off the court.
Yep.
So think about how well, like, those three guys together and even individually have a positive impact on the court, despite the fact that Donte DiVincenzo has been one of the worst shooting offensive players in the league so far this year.
Yeah.
What if the shooting comes around?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So I'm turning a negative to a positive.
Yes.
It also feels like Naz's year shooting-wise has not been great as well.
That's actually so DiVincenzo was my number one least favorite thing once we take away Jaden McDaniels getting his first double-double.
Yeah,
and
ridiculous.
Naz Reid.
Hurtful to the whole organization.
I think some of what we're watching this year is like, okay, Naz Reid at some point, we wonder, can he be a starter who plays like 35 minutes a night if needed? Because to this point, he's been a really good 20 to 25-minute player off the bench, spot starter as needed. Mm-hmm. And sixth man of the year last year. He is still very much a positive value player. He's a really, really good player. But far too often, he has games like he did last night offensively. And I say all this while also acknowledging this dude was a plus 26 in 27 minutes. He has a positive impact on games.
Yes.
But this like 1 for 10 from the field stuff where he's not making anything close range or long range, but he's finding other ways to impact. He's grabbing rebounds. He's moving the ball. So that's good. Like, if you're not going to be able to make a shot, find other ways to impact the game. But I think if we're projecting out, could he be a 33, 35 minutes guy as a starter? There's too many of these like lapses where he just gives you a clunker. So it's a nitpick, but it's a nitpick of a guy that was a plus 26 last night despite bad shooting. But I just want to see a little. I want to see Naz force the franchise to make him a starter. Like, force the franchise to give you 33 minutes a night. I don't know if he's fully doing that yet.
No. And the good thing about that bench too, and Naz in particular, is even when things aren't going well for him shooting wise, it doesn't deter his what he tries to bring defensively. Like we don't see it. McDaniels is a prime example, right? If he's not going well, like if his shot won't fall, it impacts his entire game. Like, you start to see it impact his defense. He starts to mope or pout. I don't think I've ever seen that from Naz, which is absolutely instrumental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My least favorite Wolves thing. So maybe this has helped the Wolves. I get it because they're off, but like I loathe the amount of days off here. Like I can't stand it. This happens in hockey early with the Wild, and part of that has to do with the XL Energy Center being like one of the most legitimately busiest arenas in the league. But with the Wolves here, like they had 5 days off. Between the 8th and the 13th, they don't play again until Thursday when they host the Knicks. They played obviously yesterday against the Spurs. I want some games, man. I want to see some damn games, and I can't stand the schedule lapses. I think there's time to have time off, which is obviously beneficial when guys are a little banged up and when you're maybe towards the back end of the season. But my God, let's play some damn games here. I can't stand it.
I think what we're seeing is the impact of the in-season tournament.
Yeah.
So, like, the Wolves played the Lakers and Spurs games, Dex, were not on the schedule because if they had advanced, then you have different opponents. Because they didn't advance, you have to wait to see who else didn't make it. So I think the one potential drawback to the in-season tournament is how it impacts scheduling. Because then when you get back to playing on Thursday, then it's Thursday, Friday off, Saturday game. So I think this is the one like curveball, and I don't know that you can get around it because you do just not know who you're going to play for 2 games until it gets reset.
All of what you just said is true, and I agree with Dex.
Yeah,
like
I'm
we
fine
don't.
with it. Yeah.
They're going to wind up playing. Let's see here. So they'll have played 2 games in like an 11-day stretch or something, right?
Right.
Because the Golden State game on that Sunday. And then that was December 8th. So between December 8th and December 19th, so an 11-day stretch, they're going to play 2 games.
Yeah.
It's weird.
But to your point, Phil, for a team like this, it probably helps them because they can actually practice.
Yes.
So from a fan standpoint, it sort of sucks. From a standpoint of a team that traded one of its star players on the eve of training camp, it gives you time to take a breath and actually practice.
Yes. Okay. Stat of the week here for you guys. This remains just absolutely incredible. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's impact. So plus 28 last night in 29 minutes, whatever it was. And on the season, when Nickeil Alexander-Walker is on the court versus off the court, the Timberwolves are 15 points better per 100 possessions when he's on the court versus off the court this year, which is Mike Conley is second at 5.5 better on versus off. Gobert is 5. So there's just something about Nickeil as a Swiss Army knife. He can shoot. He can get out in transition. He can play defense. He brings energy. And he can if you need him to handle the ball, he can do that. If you want him to play off the ball, he can. He can play with a smaller lineup. He can play with a bigger, like you can kind of plug him almost anywhere. And when you look at like the Wolves' best 3-man lineup combinations, all 5 of their best 3-man lineup combinations include Nickeil Alexander-Walker. The number 1 is Nickeil, Naz, and Gobert together. Number 2 is Nickeil, Ant, and Reid together. And then it's a couple Nickeil, Donte, Gobert, Nickeil, Donte, Reid, and then Nickeil, Ant, Gobert. He's just the elixir, man. Oh, things are kind of going sideways. Nickname. The elixir.
The elixir's a great nickname.
Dude, things are
Copyright
going sideways.
That.
What
make
should
the
we
t-shirts.
Do? We should, Ross Brendel, let's make some t-shirts.
Great nickname.
Like, oh, the opposing team's making a run. What should we do? Is Nickeil in or out? He's on the bench. Put him in. Like, boom. The game goes back to being a blowout.
Nickeil.
Switch.
Get the Tibbs.
No. Can't wait for that, man. Screaming Tibbs.
Oh, Thursday night's going to be.
On Thursday?
Thursday night's going to be just fantastic.
Yeah. So, all right.
No, that's a good one. Is he in the running, at least eventually, 6th man?
I mean, his numbers aren't as gaudy as maybe I'd have to go look around the league, but there's going to be some dudes that put up like bigger offensive numbers and whatnot. But in terms of like sheer impact, winning and losing, he has to be in consideration. But like he's only averaging 9.5 points and a couple assists.
Sure.
He's not going to put up like the gaudy box score numbers.
But the
that some
hoops
other
heads
six
will
men
know
do.
about this.
There's going to be some voters that would lean on the analytics, and the analytics would show you that this dude is a major impact, 100%. But it would have to be like in baseball.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at someone's home runs, RBIs, you'd be like, wow, look at their batting average and wins above replacement compared to, or their defensive runs saved or something.
OPS plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what he's. I know Judd loves himself some OPS.
I got you know what? No. Don't. I got no problem with it. Don't
We
paint
should start
me
to
as the
teach
old
Judd
guy.
advanced basketball stats.
Don't paint me as the guy. I just think it's the only thing that I will say in all sports is it's very important to not rely on them solely. But I think the advanced metrics can help you a lot understand what a player does.
Yeah. Well, here's an example. So like, and all of these should be taken with a grain of salt, but win shares are a thing in both baseball and in basketball. Like they have point shares in hockey too.
Yeah.
But in basketball, they have win shares and then win shares per 48 minutes, so you can kind of break it down on a minute level. And the number one player on the Wolves win shares per 48 is Rudy Gobert, which I think holds true because when he's on the court, the Wolves are just a lot better. But then if you're just watching with the eye test, though, you'd watch that game last night and be like, well, Rudy literally fumbled away 6 points offensively because he can't catch a pass or missed
Which is why they're important to meld them together.
Yeah. But he is still, like, despite the offensive frustrations and the ping pong paddle hands, his presence on defense, which sometimes goes unquantifiable in a box score. But the number 2 player on the team win shares per 48 is Julius Randle, and I don't believe that to be the case. I don't think that. Interesting. Because if you look at some of the other stuff, it doesn't. So
that's really interesting.
Careful. Be careful with these numbers.
Where's Ant on win shares?
He's kind of like mid-pack on the team, but still like very good.
I knew he wasn't good. I knew he was no good. I knew it.
Trade him.
Overrated.
What can you get for
his ass out of here? All right. That's a wrap. Flagrant Howls, State of the Wolves Monday here. We'll hit you with probably 3 more episodes this week, including our hottest Wolves takes, which I think people heard a couple of those last week and maybe didn't. These are the hottest takes, okay? So we should put a warning label on that
win
one
here.
For this week.
It's either they're not really hot takes or that's a stupid take. It's too hot.
But this is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. See you guys.